You know, use chat as a basis for communication. If you have a question that you don't want to shout out loud, if you put it in chat, then myself or Auntie Jean will pick it up and ask it on your behalf. What's Empress' second name?
Judah.
Empress Judah. J-U-D-A-H? Yeah, is that how we spell it?
I believe that's how she spells it.
Okay.
This one is Empress.
So I have changed.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I just changed. I couldn't remember what the second part was.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
I'd like to.
So,
sorry.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
To do first presentation, a brother called Delroi, who is actually a regular to the Garvey Villages Unlock the Chains and Keep Well. And Delroi has worked and trained in the Dagara tradition. And also he tells me that he's a storyteller as well. And it's going to be doing, I forgot to put the thing, but anyway. Delroi, please introduce yourself and let everybody know what the title of your presentation will be. Delroi, the screen is now yours. Thank you.
Greetings to all. Yeah, just to say I'm talking about grief really, but talking about grief from the perspective of the Dagara people. And the reason I'm talking from that perspective is because I've been trained to be a Dagara diviner and ritual keeper. So there's a little bit that I know about how they approach grief and grief work. And really the context is the conversation that we had last week. So last week we started a conversation about grief, and this book in a way just builds on that by at a particular African tradition and how we deal with it through the lens of the Dagara people. Just to say just a little bit about my people. I mean, I first met my teacher who comes from Burkina Faso in 1996. And at that time, he did a burial ritual in this country for about 90 men. And he was really just introducing one of that he underwent as part of his initiation process to us, which involved being buried overnight in the earth. And that was a process of cleansing and also reconciling with our mother, and literally our mother, earth. So using the energies of Mother Earth to cleanse us, but also to ground us and to revitalize us. And in that process also to allow who might want to come to speak to you, to speak to you. So I was blessed that my grandmother was one of the people that touched me that night. But one of the things that I was struck by as well is, you know, we sung a particular song, and the melody of the song was the same melody as a melody that I grew up singing in church. So I was like, oh, okay, so this is a long time thing that I've known from before, you know, and it's just that I didn't have the right words to sing that song. Yes, I've been using a Christian song, but the melody was as an ancient melody, you know, so that was a blessing to have that experience. And then the next thing that really happened for me is that I joined a group of diaspora. When I say diaspora, I'm talking people who were born on the continent, West Africa, people who were born in the Caribbean, and people who were born on this land. And we did about a 9-month process. This is in 1999, in which we, before we went around, we did a lot of cleansing, healing rituals, but kind of mainly based on the Dagara and also the Ifa tradition, and involved making offerings and doing cleansing of different kinds. And then traveling around the UK, visiting places like Liverpool, places like Cardiff, places like Bristol, places in London, where our ancestors had either been transported to or where they had been linked with our ancestors, and doing healing rituals in those spaces as a preparation for a pilgrimage that we then did to West Africa, and the pilgrimage being to Senegal, Ghana, and Burkina Faso. And the reason for that was really about doing the work that we needed to do, both personally to heal our relationship with our ancestors, but also to extend that work out to the diaspora, to our heritage, to our roots, to our ancestors, continental, Caribbean, diasporide, in terms of the triangle from the Caribbean here and to the continent of Africa. So that was kind of the real kind of, I suppose, platform for me getting into the work that I did then. And in that process, we spent time going along the Atlantic and literally just doing overnight rituals, singing, dancing, making offerings to our ancestors, to the waters of the sea, really, to release the spirits of our ancestors. And the culmination of that process was going to the village in Dano, where Elder Malodoma is from, and having a 3-day grief ritual held on behalf of our ancestors in the village. And that ritual was led by Malodoma's father. And that took place over 3 days and 3 nights. So the tradition, the way that they approach grieving in the Dagra tradition is that it's not a 1-day wonder. It's like a 3-day, 3-night experience where really the whole village comes out and grieves the spirit of the person that's gone, and uses that process as a way to detach from the spirit of that person, release them, and all encourage and support their spirit to make the journey across to the other world. So that's kind of the kind of background to where I come to this talk from. So there's as well as the actual 3-day grief ritual, the Dagra, another phase. Yeah. So the grief ritual is one stage, and that's the stage of us mourning in order to release the energies that we have attached to this person's spirit, and for their spirit to be released from the earth plane and to make that journey transition across into the other zone. And I'm not going to know where that zone is, because the next stage is a ritual, which in Western terms, we call it ancestralization, but effectively it's a whole nother set of rituals that support the transition of that spirit from this world, or from that place where it's gone to, where it's been released to, into the world of the ancestors. And that's a whole nother phase. But before we get to that phase, we do the grief ritual stage. So in the Daguerre tradition, there's 5 elements. So there's the element of fire, which represents ancestors, the element of water, and then the element of earth, mineral, and then nature. And in the cosmology of the Daguerre, the element of fire is first. And if you kind of picture it, it's also like follows the kind of model of evolution. So they picture us in terms of this planet as a raging ball of fire initially. And in order for that, that ball of fire needed cooling. And the ancestors that needed cooling were cooled by water spirits. And because the water spirits came, it then allowed that energy and that matter that was there to coalesce into earth. Yeah, and from the earth emerged the bones, which is the mineral, which is the stones and the mountains. And from that solidity, then we had nature coming out, because then the earth was cool and solid enough. So from the Daguerre perspective, water is a cooling energy, which puts out the kind of fires of crisis, in a sense, that we have in our life. And so grief and loss is a period of crisis, is a period of pain, is a period of turbulence in some ways, that needs and requires the healing energy of water. And water in this instance is a cooling energy. It's a cleansing and a cooling energy. So that's where the cosmology of grief and water coalesce. So grief is a water ritual. Yeah, both literally in the sense of we shed our tears, but also in the energy that it provides in terms of providing cooling to those who've suffered a loss, and cooling to the village, to the community, to the family that have suffered the loss that they've suffered. So that's the framework that the Daguerre experience and work in terms of grief. And the thing is, for them, it's not, grief is not to say it's not personal, but it's very much a communal experience. So when you do the grief ritual, what you'll see is you'll have the whole village come out, yeah, over the period of the 3 days, to come and pay their respects, but not just their respects, to also come and tell their stories, yeah, related to the one that's passed. So you literally have the body of the person on the sacred ground that the ritual is held on. You'll have the men and the women in separate groups, and the women will do a particular dance, and the men will do a particular dance. So the men and the women traveling back and forth towards the body, particularly the family members, and basically weeping and wailing and being escorted up to the body to go up there and shed tears, shed their grief, their stories about what it is that they know about this person, things about this person, but also the bad things about this person. So there's no fake. Yeah, it's like you go up there and you tell your story like it is. So the reality is that what we're trying to do is to let go of everything that you have attached to this person, because the thinking is this, is that if we hold on to our not just our grief, but anything that we kind of have negative attached to this person, it holds them on this earth plane. So a way of letting them go is to tell every single story that you have to tell about them to them. And the body of this person is there. The spirit is on the other side, but we literally have the body in the place to look at and to remind us of who they were when they were with time. And so over 3 days and 3 nights, you have djembes, etc. People are singing and dancing. There's millet beer, etc. That people drink in order just to kind of cool and refresh themselves over that 3 days. And people go back and forth in waves, literally mourning, telling their stories, and just being as honest as they can in terms of releasing the spirit of this person from this plane onto the other. Take a rest. So just kind of consider where we're going. So I'm just going to look at my notes a sec. So one of the key things about why they do it for 3 days is because, you know, in terms of making the transition from this world to the other world, it is our energy, it is our tears, it is our grief that actually helps the spirit of the deceased to move from here to the other zone. Yeah, so we need to take the time that it takes, yeah, in order to do all that releasing. And the 3 days also gives every member of the community the opportunity to actually turn up over the period of time to come and pay their respects and to share and shed what they need to shed in that time. So from the Dagara perspective then, grief is it's like a sacred energy. Yeah, it's like grieving is a sacred process. Yeah, it's not simply a kind of thing that you do on a personal level. It has a communal and it has a relationship to the ancestors. Yeah, so it's not just your personal thing. One of the can't cry, and particularly they're talking about men. If we can't shed tears, if we don't shed tears, we're actually a danger to our community. Yeah, because it's essential that we're able to release the pent-up pains, the pent-up frustrations, the experience of loss that we and the pain that we have. And it doesn't have to be the loss of an individual necessarily. It could be anything. It could be the loss of a relationship. It could be the loss of a child. It could be your job. You know, but whatever it is that you suffer as a pain and as a loss, is essential that we flush that out of our system. And the grief ritual is the process that we use to do that. In this country, and well, to be honest, in this country and in the States is where I've done this ritual with Westerners. Yeah, we don't have a body. Yeah, so we don't have a body where we can actually, you know, spend the time going up and back and forth and actually telling that story to. Instead, what we do is create a water shrine. Yeah, so you create a water shrine at the end of the space. And in that space, you go up to the shrine and you give yourself the permission to release what it is that you have to say. You can create a bundle, for example, to symbolize the items or the things inside of yourself that you want to release, and place the item, the symbolic item, onto the shrine. And later at the end of the ritual, we'll then deposit that somewhere in water or the earth, or somewhere, an energy that can actually take that and cleanse it and release it without us having to get contaminated by it. But you can do that process. We do that process collectively. So it's always a communal process. And again, similar to the way that Dagara work, one of the things that we do is you don't actually ever go up to the body, or you don't go up to the shrine on your own. One of the reasons why is that when you're in the village and you see them grieving, people get overcome. Yeah, and people literally want to, you know, cross the line, grab up the body, hug up the person, them kind of things. And so you have somebody walk in from the space where the women start, the space where the men start, with them, to make sure when they reach that point, they're not overcome and they don't step into the zone of the dead. Yeah, because you don't really want to be doing that. There's a similar thing in terms of doing the work in this environment, that you don't want people stepping across into the space of the shrine, because that represents another zone. Yeah, so you want to keep people safe, so but also somebody accompanying them up to the shrine and escorting them back as well. So it's a process that you know, I've experienced both in the States and over here, and it's a powerful process for the individuals who either facilitate it, because in a way you're acting as gatekeepers, yeah, in terms of supporting the release of the ones who've been wounded or the ones who've left us, and you're also facilitating the healing of the ones in the community who are participating in surrendering and letting go of their grief. Kind of taking it maybe to kind of present day, you know, one of the things that they think as well, the Dagara, is that experience of leaving this world and going to the other one is not a purposeless thing. Yeah, so everybody that leaves, yeah, leaves there for a reason. So death is never an accident. Yeah, nobody dies accidentally. There's never a no good reason for you passing. Because to the Dagara, the way they see us is this, is that humans are actually meant to be immortal. Yeah, the only reason we die is because our relationship with the other world, with spirit, is in some ways frayed. Yeah, if we had the quality of relationship that we were kind of, what's the word, divinely meant to have, we would live forever. Yeah, we wouldn't have to experience this thing of death. So whenever somebody dies, they do a process of divination to check in what the cause is. Yeah, and to clean up what that is ritually as well. But also the person who passes, there's a gift that's been offered by their departure. And it can be as simple as, you know, we facilitate them to travel into the other world. And in exchange, when they get over there, they offer us their eyes, they offer us their ears. They become, yeah, someone who can represent our case in the other world, but someone who can nudge us and give us direction on this side of the waters. So there's a relationship between one who's gone, who gets the opportunity to travel back to their community in the other side, but there's also a transaction where they then become of service to us on this side. So that's part of the deal in terms of doing the grief work, to support them to get there, but also to have them to support us to do the work that we must do with their guidance and with their inspiration and illumination. And so whenever somebody leaves, in a sense, it's a kind of sacrifice. Yeah, it's a letting go of the gift of life on this side and the opening up of the possibility for other things to emerge as a result of their transition. And what I was thinking about in terms of the recent events that have happened, the killings, and some of the killings that have, not just the recent one, let me just be honest here, is that I was thinking about George Floyd's death, and maybe saying one of the things that we may want to do as part of our grieving is also to accept that there's a gift that he's offered us. Yeah, and the gift that I think he's offered us, one of the gifts he's offered us, is the awareness that things can't stay as they are. Yeah, it's the push and the impetus to make the changes that need to happen in this world for both those who went before and those who are coming behind us. Yeah, it may not be that things change to the extent that we want for us who are here. And I'm 55. You know, it may not happen that things change sufficiently to the extent that we want, but it definitely can be that by making a transition to the other world, however undignified it may be, he can help ignite the fire of redemption for us in a much bigger way. Yeah, so that's one of the things that those who go ahead, however they go ahead, offer us. They give us a platform to do something different with our lives and with the energy that they have put across into the other world. So kind of last week, one of the things I was saying, you know, what I've done myself personally is not to do a big communal grief ritual, but just to have a shrine. You know, so I've had a blue cloth, a blue and white cloth. I've had a bottle of a bowl of water, a candle, and I've just lit that candle or a candle 3 days, 3 nights on the trot, and just go in there, offer a prayer, and just to say, this is what I'm praying about. This is what I'm grieving about. This is what I need to shed. Yeah, and to keep letting that experience and my own tears, my own grief, be a part of the process of his transition and our, you know, emancipation in a broader sense, but to be connected to the wider community, but do it in spirit. Okay, so all of us come from water. Yeah, all of us are connected to water. Water is alive. Water can hear our songs. Water can hear our voices. Water resonates with whatever vibration that we put out. So if we choose to, we can actually make a contribution in terms of the healing that we receive personally, but also collectively by using grief and using grief work as a tool for that. I think I'll stop there at the moment, yeah, and just kind of allow any questions that people have about what I've said.
Yeah, I do have a question. You know, you said you got the 3 days where you can say your thanks and tell your stories. Do the 3 days start the same day as a person's passing, the day after, or when?
It depends, because it's not like the old days. And when I say it's not like the old days, if somebody dies, they might be in hospital. Yeah, so it's not until you've got the body back to the village, yeah, that you can then actually start that process. If the person dies in the village, then it can happen as soon as, yeah. You still would do a divination, you still would do a reading to do a check-in about what it was that happened underneath, yeah, that caused their transition. But you would start it as soon as possible.
Okay, so because we're not really in that village
Context, yeah.
context, yeah.
Yeah.
And say they died in hospital, when would you start? And we don't always, like the olden days, we used to bring the body back home, but we don't bring the bodies to the home anymore.
Yeah.
You have to.
Sorry, go on, Auntie.
No, I was going to say you have to go to the morgue for that, or where the directors, the funeral directors are. So when would you actually start?
So in the village, for example, when I did we did a 3-day grief ritual. This was in 2000, 99, 2000. We didn't have a body, yeah, because we don't have the body of our ancestors to bring across to Dano. But what we did do, we turned up with images of our personal ancestors. We turned up with images of some of our collective ancestors, some of the freedom fighters and people that we revere. You know, so we turn up with those images, we turn up with symbolic items, and we created a shrine or a body of all those material in the village. And that represented the body of our ancestors, yeah, personally and collectively. Now we turned up there, you know, however many hundreds of years in some cases, centuries in some cases, 20, 30 years in some cases, yeah, after those people had passed, yeah. So there wasn't a time limit to when we could actually do the process of the grieving. Yeah. So the reality is, when we don't have the capacity to say we start 2 days after, we start 3 days after, that is not the key thing. The key thing is that we do the work of the grieving. The key thing is that we actually do the releasing of their spirits and the attachments that we have and the grief that we have, so that they can actually be released. Yeah, so there's no, you know, in some traditions you might have, you've got to do it within 5 days, 3 days, etc., etc. That isn't the principle that I'm working with. The principle is do the work. Yeah, so set the time aside and actually do the work of doing the grieving. Yeah, so there isn't like 2 days after or 3 days after. And like I said, you know, in the work I've done here, I haven't had a body of people. Yeah, I've had symbolic items. I've gone to the shrine. I've created something that represented different aspects of my grief or represented the person, and then placed that in the shrine. Yeah, I haven't had a body to give. Yeah, the ancestralization ritual is a whole nother process, in that you create or you collect items that represent the body of your grandmother or the body of your grandfather or whoever it is that's deceased. Yeah, you actually have something that symbolically represents that and that you use to help them make that transition into the ancestral realm. But that's a different kind of ritual. The grieving is not one where you necessarily have to have, in a sense, you know, part of the thing is we have some of that in the way that we do things. Yeah, to some extent we have retained some of that process, but what we've condensed it. You know, so you'll turn up to church or wherever it is that you're going to do that thing in the morning or for that day for 3-4 hours. And then we'll go to the graveside and then we'll do maybe another hour or two of that process of grieving to some extent. And then we'll go and do that celebration process. Because what also happens is that there is a process of celebration as well. Yeah, so it's not just grieving, it's grieving, and then there's also that celebration process. So we have retained some of those things. But to be honest, my experience is that, you know, the little 4 hours that we spend in church, the little couple of hours that we spend by the graveside tends to be insufficient. And often we're not focused on what it is that we're there to do, which is to actually let go the spirit of this deceased and to support them. Yeah, to make that transition from this world, their spirit, to make that transition from this domain, from the earth plane, yeah, into another zone. So in a way, what this ritual does, it gives us a time to collect, and we can do it, you know, we don't always have 3 days. Yeah, you can do something for one night, but you can do a sequence where what you do is commit to do the work. Because essentially, if we keep carrying this baggage around, we're like somebody who's ready to explode. Yeah, we've got this stuff inside of us, we've got this stuff attached to us. And what we need to do is to let go of this stuff, find a way, but not to do it personally, to do it communally, but also to do it in relationship to spirit. So we're not just shouting and singing for emptiness, we're singing and shouting and communicating to those on the other side to let them know what it is our intentions are and what it is we'd like to happen through the energy that we have. Yeah, so energy, you know, we know this. Energy doesn't disappear; it just transforms in its form. So what we're trying to do is encourage what has shifted from this zone to get to where it needs to go, so that it doesn't have to hang around us. It doesn't have to rattle us and say to us, "Listen, it's still here. I haven't really gone home. I'm not settled. I'm not at peace, you know, and I need release. Yeah, I want something done that helps me to move from too close to you. Yeah, in that way." Yeah, put in a place where it's okay for me to be, and it's okay for me to communicate with you, but we do it from our proper place, our proper home, our proper abode, not somewhere where the spirit is rattling around trying to release itself, but doesn't have the capacity because it hasn't got the energy to make that journey from this zone to the next.
Yeah, I mean, you answered the question I was going to ask, because I was going to say, well, could you do it? Do you have to do it as a collective? You know, so you call people to come, or could you do it by yourself?
I would always say collective is best, yeah, because, you know, for me, my first experience is, you know, literally the whole village came out. Yeah, so can you imagine it? You got a group of about 7 people from the diaspora. These people don't know us. They don't know us. Yeah, we turn up, and obviously we'd communicated before we got there, but you turn up to this place, to this village, small little, you know, small village in Burkina, and you've got, you know, an elder in the community for 3 days standing up, leading and facilitating this ritual on behalf of us personally and our collective ancestors. It is a much more powerful experience when you have a community. Yeah, because it's not simply about us and our personal grief, because that's one of the things, just talking about grief from an African perspective, and I think this is true of almost any tradition. I can only speak about the Dagara really that I know, but it's collective. Yeah, it's never just I, it's always we. So when one is hurt, all of us are suffering. Yeah, so the whole village needs to go out there and help to repair the wound that has happened, to heal the loss that has occurred. Yeah, it's not a personal responsibility, it's a collective responsibility. So obviously we're not going to have necessarily everybody, yeah, turning up to whatever is organized, but you still want a community and a voice of, you know, chorus. You don't want an individual voice, where you can have the collective to do that work. It's much more powerful as a collective.
And I know some traditions is the wailing, the crying, the wailing helps to move on the actual person who's
absolutely.
Spirit. So is it the loudness or the collectiveness of the wailing?
Well, you know, our emotions are energy. Yeah, our emotions are energy. So if we are, and one of the things, you know, about being honest is, you know, it's not about eloquent words. Yeah, it's about the energy that you put into it. So especially when you see the wailing, you don't have to know what those sounds mean. Yeah, you don't need words to translate what somebody's feeling when you see people wailing in certain ways. Forget the language. Yeah, you know the language of grief. You know when you see genuine, authentic pain being expressed and released. Yeah, the other world, the world of spirit, relates to that. Yeah, they don't relate to, and I'm not saying my words articulate don't matter, but they're not interested in you being articulate. They're interested in you turning up and saying, listen, yeah, I'm feeling rough, I'm feeling pain. You know, this is what I've got to offer. I've got my heart to offer. Yeah, I've got my truth to offer. Yeah, it doesn't have to be fancy. So wailing is all, is that's what, when I say people go up to the shrine, what I'm saying, people wailing are weeping. Exactly that, yeah? The energy, but it's their genuine grief that they're letting out. And it's that energy that helps the spirit to make it across to the other side. And I'm not saying, you know, like, for example, what I described with myself, using the bowl, that's my personal space, but it's not as powerful as me being in a group. It's just not. It cannot be. It cannot be. You know, me being with a group, doing it collectively, that power is amplified. Yeah, the things that I can't reach, don't know how to touch or to allow to open up in myself. Seeing you in grief, that would touch me. Yeah, you hearing me wail, that's going to touch us and spark something for you. Yeah, so you see it happen. You know, you see this wave happening. Somebody gets touched, somebody else gets touched, somebody else goes on. You know, so back and forth, back and forth. But it's because each one of us is feeling that kind of stiffness, that kind of blockage, being touched and open up, so that we can actually release what we have got. When you do it personally, you kind of keep your little self, you know, like a bit tight, a bit calm, a bit cool. You know, you want to look all them kind of things, or you don't want to look ugly, because when you're crying genuinely, you look ugly. You know, your face is snotty. You know, there's no prettiness and beauty in that. Yeah, there's nothing attractive necessarily in crying. Yeah, as you know, crying your heart out. So it just helps to do it communally, because everybody gets to that place where they just surrender and just do what they got to do. You know, there's no prescription for how you grieve in that sense, but I think you get more genuine when you're in a community and you can see and feel what everybody else is expressing at the same time.
Okay. So are you there for the 3 days?
Am I there for the 3 days?
Or do you just start the people off?
No. If I was there, I'd have to be there. You
Oh.
can't turn up and vacate. You can't turn up and vacate. No, you can't do that. You'd have to be there. You know, I mean, the simplest way is to do that overnight. Yeah, because doing 3 days is almost like you almost have to build up to that capacity, you know, to be able to do that for 3 days. Yeah, you also have to have a space that you can hold on to for 3 days. Yeah, you got to set the whole process of food, of, you know, holding the community, of being away, literally, from the normal zone and operation of life. It's easier to do a one night thing than the whole thing. You still have to do that. In terms of, you know, for example, when I've hired spaces, you still have to get together, you still have to tell your stories, you still have to find a way to create the shrine. Then you have to go out there and do the work. Yeah, so all of those things take time to do, you know, they take time to do. And really, you adapt it to our environment to some extent, but the core process of doing the grieving, that you don't change. You just have to make that happen as best as.
One more question. Is it 3 days straight, or is it 3 days that you go home and come back, or is it you're there for the 3 days solidly?
No, I would say you're there for 3 days solidly. Yeah. Don't get sorry, no disrespect, but don't get hooked on the 3 days. The thing to do is to genuinely grieve, to create a space where we can genuinely grieve. Yeah. So, you know, the reason why I'm saying, you know, in terms of spaces, I've done, you know, it in terms of just one night. Hire a space in Brixton with a group of men, and you just chant the space down for one night. I've done it over 2 days. Yeah, I've done it over 3. It depends on what you can actually set up. But as long as you create the space where people can be genuine and people can actually do the work of connecting to their grief and releasing what they need to release, then it works. You know, so you have to adapt it, to cut your cloth to suit what you can actually do. I wouldn't like people to come in and go away, because you lose the energy. Yeah. People go out there, they get distracted, they get connected to all these other things, and you lose focus. I like to have it that however long you're doing it, if it's a half day spend where we spend. If it's a whole day spend where we spend. 3 days, we go away, we take some time out and spend those days doing the thing that we do, but not mix up the 2 different things. Because then we lose the sacredness, we lose the focus, we lose the integrity in a way of what it is that we're doing, because we're already attached too much to all this other stuff. Yeah, and we need to be able to let go of those things and put the focus on what we're really there for. So I would always say, get away from the kind of, when I say workshop thing of you go home and come back, you go, no, just stay, be with the discomfort. Yeah, be with the discomfort of being away, of being with people that you know but you don't know. Yeah, of being with emotions that you don't want to bring up but you need to bring up. And be with all of that. Be with not knowing what's going to happen when, you know, your time comes, how it's going to come. Be with that. Be with that, but be with that together. You know, rather than be with it separately. Because when you leave the space, you're alone. You go back to whoever it is you go back to in a different way. You disconnect from the energy and the vibes and the force that was created when you're in a community. In the village, they can go back home. They live there. They're used to doing this. They do this day in, day out. There's a ritual, you know, for somebody who's passed every day virtually. So it's just what they do. You know, it's just how they live. We don't have that, so we have to kind of intensify that process by isolating ourselves from all the outside distractions, and do it preferably. You know, I mean, don't get me wrong. I've done it inside, but the best place is if you can do it in nature. Yeah, by a river, you know, by a stream, by a lake. Those are the best places. By the sea. If you can't do that, then of course adapt, and that's what I do. But you know, the best and most powerful place is in nature.
Has anyone got any other questions? I love the connection to water, and you know, the connection that water plays in the whole process, and that so water being present, or being present around water, the part that our tears play, that as men we are allowed to show ourselves and not bottle it, you know, because we know that bottling it is what gets men into perpetual trouble, because it comes out in the wrong place at the wrong time in the wrong way. Yes, I just appreciate that, and just reinforcing the value and how important water is. And you know, and I was talking to a sister today who was saying that she was miserable early in the week because it was raining, you know, and I was explaining that, you know, water is of more valuable for us than, you know, the sun to some extent, because 70% of our body is water, you know, and, you know, without water you know, so yeah, just if there's any more to add about the water and the benefit of the water.
Well, I mean, it's like you say, I mean, the water's life. I mean, that's the essence of it. Yeah, we come from water, in terms of the womb. Yeah, so we're born in, if you want to, you know, we're born, not, I won't call it an ocean, but we come through, you know, we come through, I would say spirit, we come through spirit. And when I say come through spirit, we come through the womb. Yeah, so when we come through the womb of a woman, we're really coming through a spiritual vessel. Yeah, so unless we have a wholesome relationship with that aspect of ourselves, how can we be at peace? Yeah, how can we be able to be joyful? You know, water is like, it's you know, it's dynamic. It's what gives us energy. It's what gives us vitality. If we block the flow of emotions, which is another kind of metaphor for water, how can we be alive and joyful and fully who we are meant to be? So, you know, unless we do the flushing out of our bodies, which is, as you say, 7% water, unless we release negative energies that are trapped in our bodies, how can we be fully alive? We can't. You know, so fundamental, you know, in terms of this planet, you know, we have to have a wholesome relationship with water. And water is, you know, the closest thing in some ways that we actually get to know what it is to be spirit, you know, on this planet. So we can't go anywhere unless we've got that element of ourselves in touch, in tune, whether it's our psyche, you know, whether it's our physical body, you know, whether it's that sense of cleanliness that we have on a physical level. You know, without water, we don't feel good. You know, so we have to reconcile with the literal thing of water, but we also have to reconcile with the waters within ourselves and our spiritual energy. You know, so water plays all of those roles. You know, it's just profoundly healing energy if we allow ourselves to get in touch with it. Sister J Africa, go for it. Sister June.
Unmute yourself, sis.
Is that it?
Yeah. Would you like to do you have a question?
It was just something that I noticed what my mom said when I was in my deepest part of grief. And she said, June, nose run. If your eyes run, nose run water. He said, you cannot separate. So when one is in pain, we are all in pain. So it's just interesting where that concept come from. And also for myself, I always say I'm not crying, that my eyes just leak. because sometimes I don't feel like I'm crying, but my eyes leak. So it's just interesting what you're saying. So thank you for that.
And you know, I say we dishonor water as in tears, you know, because we're afraid. You know, we're afraid. You know, we're afraid of our tears, really. I think so. Anyway, maybe I'm wrong, but you know, tell me if I'm wrong. But I think, you know, we can be, men and women, you know, afraid to let those tears run. You know, because when you are crying, you are vulnerable. Yeah. But the thing is, when you are vulnerable, is when you are most open to spirit. Yeah. So, you know, there's a relationship, direct relationship between our capacity to be vulnerable and open and our capacity to be open to spirit.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. Anybody else got any other questions?
I don't have a question as such. I just wanted to say that I like the idea of the collectiveness of it. And certainly as a ritual, it's more powerful when there's more than one, when you're in a group actually supporting each other. And as you've just said, Delroi, you become stronger when you're in that vulnerable state, because everyone then is vulnerable together. You know, there's no fight for power. Do you know what I mean? Everyone's on the same level, supporting each other, and I think that's really brilliant. And it's quite sad that I mean, I don't know how practiced that ritual is in the West. I'm hearing about it for the first time, and it's quite likely that it's the first time that other people are hearing about it. But what it clearly shows is our disconnection from our rituals, our ceremonies. I mean, I don't know either if the grief ceremony, if there's a day for it within the calendar of celebrations. Yeah, I don't know, but it's clearly something that we need to learn about, and I'm very thankful for the fact that you brought it to us today. Thank you very much.
Thank them. So it'd be up to us to institute that. Yeah, it'd be up to us to set a time and to make it happen, and to make it happen with frequency. So it does happen in the West. There are other people who have this medicine and they keep regular grief rituals, predominantly in the States. Yeah, but it happens in the West as well, and it does what it's meant to do, you know. Yeah.
I want to thank you for the gift you've offered us, that George Floyd's death was a gift for change for us, and that that in a sense that we've all felt it, and the response and the reaction that's happened since has indicated that. But I think having that pronounced, you know, was really great, that, you know, so his death is not in vain. It's a gift for us towards change, and that things can't remain the same. So really appreciate that. Yeah.
I'm gonna, let me be honest, it's not me, right? I like to take credit for these things, but it's not really me. there's some people behind me, yeah. So yes. I just can voice it, yeah. But those come alongside, and you know, I stand upon. Yeah, they're really the ones that got that perspective. I can see clearly what can happen now as a result of his, you know, passing and loss. Patricia, were you going to say something?
No, just scratching my neck.
Can I? How long have we got, Weston?
Keep going. Sister Juliet is
She's not
having IT challenges at the minute, so just keep going for now.
Okay. So what I thought we could do is maybe just pass through a few questions, yeah, in terms of considering maybe something that something that we've lost, you know, some loss that we've suffered, and just go through a little process. And I'm literally going to run through the questions and not spend time giving you too much time to think about it, but just to consider it. And partly thinking about, you know, and I heard you say this, I think last week, Royston, a number of times, you know, after we've done the grieving, we also celebrate as well. So, that's really where we're trying to get to as well, to be hopeful and joyful Yeah, maybe not hopeful, but joyful and active in our lives, you know. So just a few questions to get you thinking. And I'll just run through the questions, and you can write it, you can think it, you can, you know, I'm not sure what the right thing is, discuss it maybe. Yeah, maybe discuss it, but maybe not discuss it, maybe just let it sink in, you know. So just in terms of thinking, you know, what might there be, who might there be that you've lost, you know, that you haven't really acknowledged the grief that you felt, yeah, the grief that you are experiencing, the blockage in some ways that you have in your life as a result of that, the lack of access to like resilience, yeah, because the thing about, you know, us, when we clean out ourselves, we're more empowered, yeah, we've got a different dynamism to us, yeah. So where is it that we've lost that? And part of the things that we'd have to do is kind of acknowledge, you know, in terms of letting someone or something go, you know, what was it that we didn't you know, appreciate potentially about this relationship, about this experience, about this person? You know, what is it that we need to go back and say, you know what, I see this and I see that, and I know this, you know, and I never said it to you, or I never said it about that thing, yeah, to myself. I never acknowledged it. You know, what might there be that is sitting with you that you still need to do in that way? You know, just to kind of maybe ponder on that for a few seconds. Yeah, you don't have to respond to me, but just hold that one a bit. Yeah. And then the next part of it would be, you know, what didn't happen, you know, because when we suffer a loss or we grieve something, you know, what went missing. Often in a relationship, something doesn't happen that we would have liked. And when someone passes, very often there's some kind of regret about, oh, we would have liked to have done this, or would have liked to have received this, or we should have, you know, whatever it was, done. So what went missing, you know, what is it that we kind of wanted but never got, or could have given but never gave, you know? So kind of just maybe think about that as well. And if you're able to go through that, you know, in doing so, what kind of new understanding have you got, or is coming up for you as a consequence of taking the first two steps? You know, and I'm thinking, you know, about George Floyd, like actually, you know, as disgraceful as it was, as hurtful and as traumatizing, and it's all of those things, you know, and it hasn't necessarily gone. He still has lit up an awareness, yeah, and it's not that we didn't know that, yeah, it's not that we needed to know that, but others needed to see this, and maybe things will change as a consequence of that, you know. So what new understanding is taking root in you as a result of you accepting, you know, what you needed to acknowledge and appreciate, and what went missing for yourselves? And then the last bit is maybe, how would you let go? You know, what can you do as a step to give this away? You know, give away the pain that you've got. You know, is there an item that you need to get rid of? Yeah. Is there a story that you need to put on paper so that you release that memory, that you change that narrative? Is there a visit that you need to make? You know, is there an action that you know you should do, but you haven't done? Yeah, so that you can actually close the chapter and you can actually say goodbye. And the last bit is really about, you know, making some space. Yeah, making some space for the gift of spirit to actually find itself into your life. Yeah, so it's letting go so that you could receive the gift that this pain and this loss has brought into your life. Auntie Jean,
Yes.
yeah, so I'm not sure what you'd like to do from here on in.
I don't know. It's, everybody's quiet, so I don't know if anybody's got anything to say. You can unmute yourself and ask your questions.
I'm just there, you know. I'm all right. I'm just listening to the discussion. Very interesting.
Okay.
All right.
I think what I'd like to say as well, listening to, thinking about what you've presented, Delroi, is about the opportunity for us to be truly honest with ourselves and with each other in that sort of ritual, you know, in terms of talking about the person who's passed, you know, the positive aspects of the individual, as well as the not so positive, or, you know, in terms of reality, because we're not good or not bad, we're both. And it's about, you know, people having the opportunity to speak their truth in relation to the individual who's, you know, transitioned, in order to let them go, as you say, you know, to free them from the ties. So I appreciate the honesty of the ritual. You know, that's really quite important.
I mean, I'll just say a bit about myself. I mean, the thought that I that I had is there are two sisters who I've had not arguments actually, but disagreements with, because we haven't argued, but you know, there's things that have been said and done, and I am not in the same quality of relationship with them that I was, you know, either last year or earlier this year. And really, I haven't acknowledged to either of them that I'm vexed. You know? Yeah, I'm just vexed. Yeah, one of them, basically, she, you know, a friend was ill. A mutual friend was ill with cancer, but you know, I didn't know whether or not I was allowed to even know that this person was ill. And when my friend, you know, finally spoke to me about it, she cussed me because she felt I should have been in there. You know, and I felt vexed because I didn't feel I had permission, because sometimes we like to keep these things secret to ourselves, you know, so I felt I didn't really have the right to just go in and say what I felt or thought, you know. But that vexed me because I thought she blamed me unfairly, you know, and I really haven't reconciled with her since that time. But this is a sister who I've been close with for 30 odd years, you know, so it's a big gap in my life not to have her presence and the quality of relationship that we had, because I have not said to her that I'm vexed about the way that she treated me about the sister who was ill, you know. So it doesn't have to be a death. It can be something that is close to you, that is rubbing up, a loss, yeah, something that's a void, because there's a richness that's not available in my life as a consequence of that. And even if we have to separate in terms of relationship end, go one way or the other. Yeah, don't just hang around with it, but actually close the process out.
I was having a conversation the other day that amongst us, we have so many disagreements and fallouts and conflict, a brother and a sister not talking, and a mother and a father not talking, and an auntie and an uncle not talking, and talking the next door neighbor, and so on. And in all of those disagreements, we're actually modeling something that's broken for our children. So when they have a problem, they don't know how to solve the problem because we haven't shown them how we solve problems apart from getting vexed and cussing. So so there's a part that plays in contributing to our young people not being able to problem solve, and you know, and therefore, you know, it goes over the top and somebody don't go home that day, you know. So there's work for us to do, you know, as the adults, as the seniors in the community, to start repairing. fix up with your brother and your sister and your auntie and your uncle and your mother and your father. Fix up, you know, because the other parties, when that person dies, we do the whole hypocrisy thing of crying for them and blah, blah, blah. And we have a long list of things that we held against them when they were alive, you know, so there's work to be done around fixing up.
Yeah, I'm going to say, go easy on people, Royston. Yeah, the reason why I say that,
Yeah.
because you know, Sister Jay, I see you as well. Yeah, I'm just thinking about just then. You know, what I thought is, you know, the fact is, for me to go back to my sister and talk to her, you know, I'm probably going to end up crying. Yeah, that's really what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because I love her. That's it. Do you know what I mean? It's as simple as that. And because it's been painful to be out of relationship in the way that I know ourselves. Yeah. So, you know, going towards grief and healing can be a delicate process. Yeah. So in a way, we also have to create like emotional safety, yeah, to be vulnerable. Yeah, we have to create the container where we feel safe enough to say to ourselves, it's worth taking the risk. You know, I will take the risk. And it doesn't mean you're going to get what you want necessarily from this, you know, opening up. But at least you'll have honored yourself, yeah, your own spirit in that process. And that in a way is part of the invocation in terms of grief work. It's about honoring spirit, both ourselves and also the others as well.
That's fair enough.
But it's about, there's a certain level of, you know, water can be fierce. Yeah, necessarily that it's always going to be fierce in terms of getting the cleansing done. Okay, Sister Julia.
Thanks.
Greetings.
Empress Julia, you got a question?
Yes.
And this
yes.
will be the last question, yeah? Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just wondering, thinking whether the presenter could perhaps identify what African system that he is talking about in terms of the grieving process, because I couldn't help but think, particularly towards the end of the discussion, about the system of Ma'at and also the ancient Kemetic system of receiving the heart and the heart being weighed and so on, in order to determine the deceased's righteousness in terms of the totality of their life. But clearly I wasn't getting any of those signs from his presentation. So I think it'd be useful if you could perhaps identify what area. I know Chief Montana is talking in terms of, I think, the Ghana experience when I was listening to him the other week. Nothing to do with the deceased, but to do with divinity, which in a sense is connected to those joining the afterlife, to use the Kemetic term. Are you able to identify the African
definitely.
area?
Yeah, lovely question. I mean, a couple of things you triggered for me. One is the people I'm talking about is the Dagara people. So the Dagara people.
The who?
Dagara, D-A-G-A-R-A.
Dagara.
Yeah, Dagara. Yeah.
Right.
So they come from what we call Ghana and Burkina Faso. Yeah. So essentially, you know, when they carved up Africa, they split them into the French-owned, which is Burkina Faso, and the English-owned, which is Ghana. So they come from that part of the world. Yeah. And then the other thing that you say that I think is really kind of it's just touched me is my teacher talks about, although they are located where they are in terms of Ghana and Burkina Faso, they know that they made an exodus. They know that they came from Kemet. Yeah, they know that their roots were that part of the world. Yeah, so there's a lot of people on that part. When I say a lot of people, there's other people in West Africa that know their roots in terms of Kemet. Yeah, so the language is different. Some of the symbols look different. But the essence, I think, is the same. So he's aware of the roots of his people and a journey that they made that links them to Kemet. So it's not in the formal language, but definitely that idea, I can see the image of the weighing of the heart, the kind of purification that's necessary to kind of get yourself to where you need to go. But that language isn't in the culture in that way. It's more about If there is, it's more when you do the ancestralization ritual. Yeah, but in those rituals, you basically determine more specific details about the person's passing, the reason why they passed, what needs to be amended in order to ensure that they get to where they need to go in terms of the ancestral realm. But that's a whole different level of ritual in a sense. Yeah.
Thanks, Delroi. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
We're good now. We need to roll.
Sure.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah.
Interesting.
Again.
Thank you.
Yeah, great stuff. Thank you.
All right, we're moving on. I see we have our next presenter in our midst, and I have the pleasure of introducing Juliet, who's a founder of Blacksit, and her presentation is on Blacksit, Come Home to Africa. I'm so proud of you, sis. Are you able? Juliet, the screen is now yours.
Yeah, I can hear you, sis.
Wonderful.
Yeah, I can hear you. Thank you so much. I was hoping to be home by now to have a steady signal, so I hope that the signal is good. Thank you, firstly, for inviting me. I so really appreciate it. It's so good to see you again. It feels like a very, very, very long time.
It has been. It has been.
I know, right? I know. So I'm just literally driving home. I obviously relocated to Africa to live. It's the best decision I ever made. Yeah, Afrikan come home.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you kind of broke up, but we kind of got the gist of what you're saying. Yeah, we must come home. The best decision you ever made.
Yeah, it's a better life. It's a better life. And, you know, you're free of the stress and the strains and the racism, the discrimination, you know, especially when I think about, you know, they're going to be having, oh my gosh, your battery's died. Yes.
Okay.
Let's hopefully she'll get the charge plugged in quickly, and she can get on with her presentation. Unfortunately, yes, she wasn't at home at the time, and as I said, she wasn't able to get home just as yet, so she's traveling. So hence we got another car presentation.
Okay. I'm going to suggest that let's take a short break. Let's take a 10-minute break because the last words I heard, your batteries died. Yeah. So let's see what happens. So let's take a 10-minute break. I'm going to play you a clip during that time, and let's see what happens in terms of the logistics when we come back.
Yeah, thanks.
All right. Okay, y'all.
I'm Byron F. Wilson, founder of the Wilson Academy. The riots that have taken place all over the country and now all over the world are inevitable. And contrary to the opinions of some, the riots are both effective and necessary. The problem is, it's not a sustainable path to what we want. But then what next? What are we supposed to do? That's what this message is about, what we're going to do. Young people, my college students, my high school students, you're ready to act. You're ready to fight. But no one's listening to you. They just keep telling you to go home. But I hear you, and we have a plan. In order to find a solution, we must first understand why this is happening. The reason that officers of the law and private citizens acting as if they're officers of the law continue to murder us is because we can offer no consequence. For example, the reason you don't see Jewish people being murdered by police is because the Jewish community can provide economic consequences. They own things collectively. They're well invested in the media and the law, and they've built a strong community by focusing on exclusive internal growth and wealth building. But when members of the Black community are murdered by white officers or vigilantes, we peacefully protest, focus on whatever election is upcoming, and ultimately, there are no convictions for the criminals. There's something that we missed about how the civil rights movement was effective. Protesting was just the beginning. It was to unify the people and bring attention to the issue. But the next step was always economic action, boycotting, investing in our communities. Then that economic action is what forced legislation. The reason our efforts continue to fail is because we first of all keep asking for change instead of forcing it. But secondly, because we keep skipping a critical step in the process. So what do we want? Well, in the short term, we demand justice. In the long term, we demand reform. But we must be specific if we are to hold our nation accountable. So we demand three things. One, we demand convictions and equitable and appropriate prison time for all officers involved in the murders of Breonna Taylor and George Floyd and all parties involved in the lynching of Ahmaud Arbery. Two, we demand legislation that ensures independent review of public safety officers. And three, we demand a modification to the standards by which officers can be prosecuted. I'm sure you've heard people say, if you want change, get to the polls. Now, I'm not suggesting voting is useless, but the reality is voting will not solve our problems. In fact, we cannot allow ourselves to become distracted by political affiliations. The only way to get the change we seek is to show strength both economically and physically. So first, let's address physical strength. It is both irrational and un-American for us to continue to be met with force and not respond in kind. This is why we need all able Black Americans to exercise their constitutional rights and legally acquire a firearm. Perhaps Ahmaud Arbery would be alive right now had he been able to defend himself against the thugs who lynched him. And under Georgia's Stand Your Ground laws, well, he would have been within his legal rights. To all my gangbangers, my Bloods, my Crips, GDs, folk, everybody, I'm asking you to help us protect our communities from the white supremacist groups who would harm us. You are already armed and you're not afraid to die. I hope that you see fit to call a truce and unite against a greater common enemy in order to protect our children, our mothers, our sisters, aunties, and grandmothers. Now we must address how we fight economically. America doesn't particularly care about Black life. If it did, we wouldn't still be facing what we're facing right now. What America does care about is Black dollars. So we have to start speaking America's language. Effective immediately, we will only buy food from Black-owned restaurants. This does not apply to grocery stores, as we don't feel there are enough Black-owned grocery stores nationwide at this point to accommodate the initiative. However, there are many grocery items you can find on sites like WeBuyBlack.com. Now, our Black-owned restaurant initiative means that you will need to avoid many of your favorite restaurants, but you will discover new Black-owned favorites. And you must ask yourself what's more important. Understand that this is only phase 1 of a larger plan. We will implement phase 2 in the weeks to come. But this is something that everyone can do. So what's the point? And why will this work? According to both Nielsen and the CDC, Black people eat more fast food than anyone. By diverting our billions of dollars, we will accomplish two things. One, change is not free. Supporting only Black restaurants keeps our money in our communities, money we can ultimately leverage to create the changes we all want to see. And two, it uses our money we're already spending anyway, to create powerful billionaire allies. These companies will do what is necessary to get our dollars back. And if that means helping us to meet our objectives, well, then that's what they'll do. There are a few important notes to make when concerning this plan. This is not a boycott. We are not punishing white businesses. We are simply consumers who are making a choice to exclusively support Black restaurants in the strategic interest of justice and reform. Please note that we are exclusively supporting Black-owned restaurants, not minority-owned. The terms Black and minority are not interchangeable. So, to my Chinese, Korean, Arabic, and Indian restaurant owners, we have nothing against you personally. But if we don't do this now, there will be none of us left to buy your products anyway. If a franchise location is owned by a black person, eat at that location exclusively. We will not harm our own people. There are websites like eatblackowned.com that you can use to find black-owned restaurants in your area. But I'm confident that once everyone learns of our initiative, they'll let you know how to find them. We will not support non-equitable services. We will support black restaurants that offer the quality and service we deserve. And if we have a negative experience, we will not generalize and say, see, this is why I don't support black businesses. We will simply express our concerns to the management, and if we so choose, we just won't go back to that particular restaurant, just as we would behave with a restaurant that isn't black-owned. This is not a one-day event. Did you know that the famous Montgomery bus boycott lasted over a year? 381 days to be exact. It takes time and consistency to have impact, just as it took time and consistency to implement the racist constructs we are fighting. We will continue with our strategy until our demands are met. At times, this will not be easy. You will be tempted to stray. But please accept that there can be no change without sacrifice. A brief message to white Americans. We don't hate you. We don't hate America. We just need it to work for us in the same way it works for you. Please stop saying all lives matter. Saying all lives matter is like one house in a subdivision is on fire. The fire truck arrives and you ask the fireman to douse your house with water, even though it's not on fire, because your house is important too. We've been asking for equality for hundreds of years now. Please process that. Understand, we're done asking. This word you see on my shirt is ukulula. It's Zulu. It means fight. Black people, I need us to know that we are bigger than slavery. Our existence didn't begin when we became useful to America. We have our own continent, our own African culture, our own independent history. We are better than begging to not be murdered. The time has come for us to fight. And now we know how. Now this plan cannot work if people don't know about it. So if you do nothing else, it's important that you share this post or the link to this post on all your social media. And whenever you mention the plan, please use the hashtag #HowWeFight. You can find a hard copy of the plan at thewilsonacademy.org. Remember, hashtag #HowWeFight. Share the post.
You're muted, Royston.
Thank you. The time around Sister Juliet being, you know, it's almost there, almost there. So just be patient for a moment or two. I wonder if anyone wants to speak to the questions that Delroi had asked in terms of what came up for you, what did you write down, you know. Anyone? Well, it's the quietest I've heard, everybody.
You can hear the crickets.
I know. I know. What came up for you in the questions that Brother Delroi asked?
Greetings.
Yes, Empress Judah.
Could I just, I'm sure most of Auntie Jean's Garveyite Friday night participants are fully aware, like yourself, Royston, that the 10th of June is actually the 80th anniversary for the ascension of the Right Honourable Marcus Messiah Garvey to the great ancestors realm.
Yes.
And I just thought I would bring that into the conversation because, of course, he is an esteemed ancestor. And I just think in light of, especially with the young people, again, being encouraged to march this tomorrow, in fact, and there's an argument or a debate raging as to whether or not they should go because they could be violently attacked, whether by the police.
Being cancelled.
Yes, this is the thing. But then I've got messages still, literally, you know, before arriving in on your event this evening. One guy in particular, I'm not going to identify. If I did, I'm sure most of you would know his name, or I shouldn't say guy, one brother in the community who's insisting that he's going to be there. Because I said, although myself and another brother were there last Saturday, it was unclear what the demands are from Black Lives Matter. He went on to say that he's not a member of Black Lives Matter, but he's going to be there in defense of the Black families that have lost
the thing is not to
people through police
really.
brutality.
Have you got anything to say about grief?
Well, I mean, it's all interconnected, isn't it? I mean, at the end of the day, you know, that's why I put forward, and I think it was important, if you didn't mind, Auntie Jean, to mention the great ancestor Marcus Garvey, given, as I said, the 10th of June. But
Okay.
yeah, I think I said what I did in terms of what region in Africa was the brother.
So that's been answered.
It has, yeah.
Thank
but
you.
because you said it was so
Thank
quiet,
you.
I thought I would remember Marcus Messiah Garvey's return to the afterlife as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So going back to the question, has there anyone got any comments about the questions that Delroi asked? And did anything come up for you? Yes, please. Go ahead, Sister J. Africa.
Okay,
Go ahead.
What evoked for me is that in the diaspora, for what I realized, I lost a death of a child at a quite young age. But what it brought out is we didn't know how to grieve. So we had sort of like the Antiguan ritual where everybody just ascended on my house every single day. They bring rum, they bring food, they bring drink. But then also we had the English way of keeping that stiff upper lip. But then I also had a Nigerian uncle who was absolutely astounded that I was even part of the process. So he was saying that really, since once the baby had died, we should have taken the baby away. All the men do that and they bury the baby, and I don't even know where that baby is. So how do we grieve? What do you do? My mom was in one way with her tradition, my uncle, and people around me, because it's a child as well. Nobody knows what to say. So sometimes with my friend who is also from Nigerian, she knows as soon as somebody dies, this is what we do, this is what we wear, this is how we have this process. But for us, I think it was very heavily steeped in alcohol. Yeah, yes, thank you.
Any comment, Delroi?
No, I just felt what she said stood for itself. I mean,
Yeah, fine. Okay. So I think Sister Juliet is still not there yet, but Auntie Jean, Yvonne Douglas is here. So maybe we can segue and introduce her.
Yes, we swap roles.
Yeah.
With you, Yvonne?
She's happy with that.
Okay, brilliant. Yvonne, I'll introduce, so we do a little swap roles. So since we have Yvonne here and Juliet is in transportation, not transportation, but anyway, she's on
Traveling.
Shedepan Road.
Traveling.
I was trying to put it in the English way, but anyway, Yvonne J. Douglas is our next presenter, aka Starseed Alchemist, and she's going to be talking about the beauty and the benefits of looking within. So, Yvonne, the screen is now yours.
Ashe, thank you very much.
Welcome.
Good evening, greetings, everyone. How are we doing? Hey.
Wonderful.
Okay, so the beauty and benefits of looking within. Now, okay, so when you think about your life and you go through your life and you experience so many different things, and sometimes some of those things are not so nice. we may have gone through some traumatic things in our lives, and oftentimes we just shut down and we block those things out. We pretend they never happened, and we try and just carry on as normal, when actually those things are often driving us in very dysfunctional ways. And then you go through your life and you experience things that you don't want to experience, and you ask the universe, you ask the Most High, you ask your Creator for a lovely partner or for a really successful business, and you don't seem to get what you want. You don't seem to reach the goals that you want, but you're putting it out there. You're trying to attract those things, yet you're not attracting what it is you're putting out there. You're attracting other experiences, and because you're not actually, it makes you stop and think, why am I not receiving those things? What is wrong with me? When actually, if you've not been dealing with a lot of your stuff, your past stuff, the things that you've experienced, the things that have maybe shaped you in some way, then those things are going to cause blockages in your life. They're going to cause you to not receive the things that you want. And everything is energy. And we can have trapped energy, blocked energy in our psyche that you may not even be aware of. You may not be aware that these things are blocking you. They're there doing things in the background. Your subconscious mind may be running the show, because as I said, you might be putting it out there that you want this, you want that, you set goals and you're still not achieving them. And it could be because you've got all this other stuff in your subconscious mind that you've just locked away and don't want to look at. And if these things are left untapped and not looked at, they will run the show in your life in a very dysfunctional way. And they're going to stop you from achieving the greatness, the happiness, the joy, the success that you want and deserve. So remember that you do deserve these things, but how much do you realize you deserve these things? How do you live your life? Do you live your life in a way that shows that you deserve these things? Do you put your well-being first and foremost? We look after our physical selves. We may eat really healthily. We may go and do exercise. We may do yoga, and we go and do our hair. We wash and bathe every day. Those are the things that we do to look after ourselves on a physical level, to show that we care for ourselves. We have some pride. We take pride. But what about our mental well-being, our psychological well-being, our emotional, our spiritual? Do we place as much emphasis on those things? If not, why not? Are we afraid to go within? If so, why? I'm sure we all know that our true power is within us. We are manifestations of the Creator. We are powerful beings. And sometimes even our own power may scare us. We may, when I think back to my journey, I had a very dysfunctional childhood. It was awful. I experienced sexual abuse from a very young age, before I could even speak. I experienced emotional abuse. I experienced emotional neglect, spiritual abuse, and and there was a time when I was just dodging all of that stuff. I had 2 failed marriages, and I just was trying to get on with my life as if those things didn't really happen, and questioning, why am I struggling? I was struggling with addiction. I was struggling with healthy relationships, and I just did not feel happy. I didn't feel fulfilled. And it got to the point where I had a breakdown. Now, that was probably one of the best things that happened to me. And it wasn't even just one breakdown, but because what it forced me to do was stop and really look within and see what's going on. Why was I constantly depressed? Why was I struggling with addiction? And I started to get the answers when I slowed down. Now, we often get messages from above. Sometimes we ignore them because they're just very small, light messages, a bit like a feather just tapping you or tickling you. And you think, oh, just ignore it. I'm just going to get on with my life and carry on. And then maybe years, weeks down the line, you get another message, but it's a little bit stronger. It's a bit like a brick, and it just kind of knocks you, and you think, oh, maybe it could be another failed relationship or something. And you just think, oh, you still don't want to look within. And you carry on, still attracting the same old nonsense in your life. And then spirit just thinks, oh God, let's try again. And you get a big wallop of a sign. And that could be something like a really serious illness, a really serious accident. And it just makes you wake up, and it triggers you into this space of, I need to slow down. I need to stop. I need to get a reality check and really look within me and see what's going on. Why am I living a life that wasn't meant for me? I don't feel happy. I don't feel fulfilled, etc. And that's what happened to me. I ended up in rehab, and I had to, my main drug of choice was, believe it or not, was food. Sugar, white flour products. Those were the main things that they took away from me in the rehab. Sugar products, white flour products. That was it. When I tell you I went into trauma, it was not funny. I wanted to cuss the chef because I wanted my drugs. And my drugs was food. Because I started to really feel, I started to remember some of my childhood traumas. They started to come up. Because with addiction, what you're doing is you're pushing down the stuff. You're pushing down the feelings and the memories of your past. So you don't deal with them. But they will deal with you if you don't deal with them. And all these things started to come up. And that's when I started to address these things. And it changed my world. It changed my life. It changed my reality. I then started to realize that I was this spiritual being just having a human existence. And that all of the things that I had to go through to become the person that I am today. And all the spiritual phenomena that I just kind of started to experience. It's like, because I said everything is energy. So it's like I cleared away a lot of the crap, all that dense old stuff, cleared that away. And then it made way for my soul to expand and to remember who I am. We need to remember who we are, especially now with all what's going on in the world, with all this racism coming to light. Yes, there's a lot of ulterior agendas going on, but light has been shed on this. And also, it's a time for us as a people to remember who we are. We are powerful beyond measure. I don't even think some of us realize how powerful we are and what we're here to do. Because we don't sit with self enough. We don't sit still. We don't look within and connect with our true nature. Connect with source energy, divine source, our creator. We all might have different names and descriptions for the Most High. Do we meditate every day? Do we connect with ourselves every day? the more we look within, the more we are still, the more we're going to realize who we are. And, you know, this journey of self-discovery, it's about peeling away the layers of the onion. Yes, one issue may come to light. You may find that you've got daddy issues, or you may find that you've got serious mother wound, or you may find that you've got relationship issues, or you may find that you've got to deal with abuse that happened a long time ago. You shed that layer, and then years down the line, I thought I dealt with that shit. And then you realize, not all of it. There's another layer. You just have to keep going through each layer bit by bit. I don't know about you, but during this period of lockdown, have you used that time to connect with self? Have you used that time to see, what do I need to work on within myself? How do I move forward? It's been a lot. I've kind of enjoyed a lot of this time, because it's given, you know, there was some more stuff that I had to deal with, like heart stuff, forgiveness that came up. And once I dealt with that, it was like, whoa, more expansion. You know, some of us have got big souls contained in this body. But if our body is dense with stuff that we're not dealing with, that we're not looking at, our soul's just it's gonna feel stifled. So how much do you want to expand? How, you know, our true essence is love and joy. And when you connect with that part of you, it's like better than sex. When you really do connect and you live your purpose. This is why we need to look within, because we're not just here to have a human experience. We are having a human experience, and sometimes I just think, oh God, this human experience is just too much. But we're also here to live a purpose. Our soul has come here for a purpose. Are you living on purpose? Is your soul joyful? Does your soul feel fulfilled? Are you happy? Are you contented? If you're not, then you need to look within to find out what your soul's purpose is. Why did you come here? Why are you here? Do you know why you're here? Or are you just coasting? Are you just existing? Or are you really living? Are you really living? And that's why we need to be looking within ourselves, being quiet, being still, and dealing with the layers of the onion, dealing with the stuff that's happened to us. Because a lot of the things that have happened to us, our soul signed up for that contract. And it may sound a bit, oh, I didn't want to experience that. I mean, I remember when someone said to me, oh, you'll get to a point where you'll forgive your stepdad for the abuse. I said, I will never forgive him. Lord of mercy, I've forgiven him a long time. Those things don't upset me anymore. There's no emotional charge around those things anymore, because I've dealt with it. I've looked within, and I've kind of gone, I've vomited all those things out, and I've healed from them. I've been through so many different healing processes. You know, I'm a counselor, so I checked. So when I came out of rehab, I then left my job in the corporate industry, in banking industry. I trained as a counselor. I trained as a coach. I evolved into doing Sechem energy healing, shamanic healing, crystal healing. And that's just through all the work that I've done on myself. I've just evolved into this being that I am today. And I have no regrets. And I have no regrets in the amount of money I've spent on my healing, my development, because I believe I'm worth it. Not believe, I know I'm worth it. And this is another thing I feel that we as a people need to value ourselves enough to invest in ourselves, invest time, resources, money into our development. How often do you spend on yourself instead of investing in yourself? Do you value yourself enough to flourish, to be happy, to be contented, and to be living your life on purpose? Or are you mean to yourself? Self-love is being talked about a lot these days. And some people think, oh, self-love, self-love. But have you ever stopped to think about what self-love really is? And if you really love yourself? I thought I loved myself at one point. Yeah, I used to, do certain things, look certain way. But when I looked deeply, I realized I don't, because I wasn't looking after myself. Do you look after yourself on every single level? Do you value your time? Or are you always doing, busy, busy, busy? We're human beings. Well, we're having a human existence, but we're human beings, not human doings. Can you say no to people and not feel bad? Or do you feel always obliged to do something for people when people ask you? Do people take advantage of your time? Do you have healthy boundaries in place? That's all part of self-love. Taking the time out to do the things that you need to do to nurture yourself and nurture your soul. That's all part of self-love. Do you constantly go back to relationships that no longer serve you because you don't love yourself enough? And that could even include relationships with family. I've been on a journey where I'm considered the black sheep of the family because I'm very different. And I've stood out against the abuse, the religion. But I don't consider myself to be a black sheep. I call myself the rainbow sheep. And I'm happy in that. And that's about me loving myself and following my path, not pandering to other people's expectations of me. That's part of self-love. Not going back and forth, looking for that validation. Sometimes we want that validation from our parents, even as adults. But actually, we just need to learn to validate ourselves and reparent ourselves. Where we were lacking from our parents. So, a lot of my clients that come to me, they have to learn to reparent themselves because a lot of their needs were not met as children. And it's not about blaming the parents, because sometimes our parents did the best they could with the tools that they had. But it's about taking responsibility now for their own lives and reparenting themselves. And that's all part of self-love. So do you love yourself enough to go within, discover who you really are, remember who you are? Because this journey is all about remembering. Because, we come here, our soul has amnesia, and then we start to remember. I have soul memories of past lives. Starting to remember who you are, remember why you came here, remember the powerful being that you are. Right about now, we need powerful beings to step up into this space, because the paradigm shift is happening right before our very eyes right now. We are living in very unprecedented times, and we are needed to move forward to move humanity forward. And we are a special people. So how many of you are leaders here and are not leading because you're not looking within? What stops you? What stops you? Are you in your own way? Do you get in your own way? If so, it's time to get out of your way. Get out of your way. Start doing the work. I call it shadow work, inner work. Deal with the shadow. When you think about a shadow, animals, like if you see a cat and it sees its shadow, it plays with its shadow. It's very curious. A child, when it sees its shadow, is quite scared. Mom, what's that? It's following me. Yes, man, the shadow will follow you wherever you go. The shadow won't leave you. Your issues won't leave you. They will keep knocking on your door until you deal with them. And if you don't deal with them, you'll go to the grave quite bitter, quite ill, quite sick. Physical disease is a manifestation of what you're not dealing with on a psychological, emotional, spiritual, emotional level. So this new paradigm, it's time to just let go of all that stuff. Just let it go. And just rise up. It's crucial time now to deal with our shadow stuff. That stuff does not serve us anymore. We need to stop running away from it. We need to face ourselves. How many of you can look in the mirror, really look in the mirror, deep in your eyes and say, I love you. I love you. I honor you. I remember when I was told to do that many years ago, I couldn't do it. I cried. The self-esteem was on the floor. I couldn't do it. Now I can do it and I can laugh and play with myself and I just, yeah. Deep within your eyes. If you can't do that, then how can you expect someone to look you in your eyes and tell you that they love you? I'm just looking at my notes. Is there anything else I need to cover? I don't think so. Any questions?
How much time would you say you should have by being still?
Okay. So I'm just going to look into the questions as well. So in being still, if you're just starting off with being still, I would recommend 10 minutes to start off with. Mm-hmm. I'm going to put my my website details in because on my website you can download a free meditation. It is for anxiety, but it doesn't really matter. Yvonne Douglas. Start off with 10 minutes. No, it's not. Sorry. And build up from that. You know, you've got guided meditations, you've got music meditations and silent meditation. Do whatever feels right for you and build up. There's a question there. One of the problems is we are not honest about our issues and we're a mask to others. Yes. Take off the mask. Who are you fooling? You're fooling yourself. Get honest with yourself. because it doesn't serve you. And you're not alone. And that's the thing, you're not alone in your struggles and your issues. You're not the only one. There's so many of us that have been through very similar things. Just be open, be honest. We need to heal so much. And there's no shame in talking about your stuff. If you're carrying, see, as I said, everything is energy, and you could be carrying around shame, guilt, upset. They're such negative energies to be carrying around. And right about now, the planet Earth needs high vibrational beings. We need to be vibrating high. We need to let go of all these negative things and get honest. Just be open. Find people that you can connect with, and that you feel that you can open up to and trust. I've just this week launched a new what do I call it? A new endeavor. It's Goddesses of the Round Table. So myself and 6 other sisters, light workers, healers, we've come together and we've created a round table. And we're going to be going live for the first time on Sunday at 8 p.m. And this is a space where we're going to really talk about our journeys, our stuff, our expertise, our wisdom, but also our stuff. Because I'm not ashamed to talk about my stuff. I used to be, but that got me nowhere. That just kept me in a very unhappy state of existence. Yes, I'm just seeing a comment. Healthy relationship, we need to have boundaries, no obligations to anyone. That's right, who is toxic or abusive. We do have to detach with love. I've done that. I've detached with love from so many family members. The Goddess Roundtable link is HTTP. I think that's it.
I get I love that line you said. How many leaders are not leading because you're not looking within? And I'm perpetually challenged every time I say, you need to do your work on yourself. You need to do your work on yourself. You need to step up in terms of leadership. And one of the things that I think that we are carrying from some of our older generation who said, yeah, don't talk about that thing anymore, just let it pass. Or you don't know that person down the road is your brother or sister because nobody's talked about it and nobody's told you, all of these things that have been kept closed. And I think that's a real struggle for us today, because we need to step up like you did and open up. And some of us are still running on the old model of, keep quiet, don't air your dirty washing, don't, all of those things.
And this is it, the thing is, secrets keep us sick. They keep us sick and they keep us dysfunctional. And it's so much pain. And the more you don't deal with the pain, yes, as someone says, Patsy says, the more it produces pain, because you're trying to hide that pain and you're hiding it with addiction, you're hiding it with porn, you're hiding it with dysfunctional relationships, you're hiding it with eating too much food, you're hiding it with alcohol, you're hiding it with drugs, you're running away, it's just creating a big snowball effect. We need to just get away from that mentality of our parents and like, why are you airing your dirty linen in public? Air it, man, because you're not the only one. Air it. I've written books. On my website, you can see the books that I've written. You can. Hungry for Love is about my journey, and I just air everything. And I went in. Somebody said to me, Yvonne, you went in, didn't you? And I was like, yes. Because a lot of the things that happened to me were shameful. But you know what? It weren't my shame.
That's right.
It was not my shame to carry. People put their shame on me. So by talking about it and dealing with it, I released that shame. Carrying shame is awful. Yes, we've all experienced trauma and it's in the DNA. Yes, right about now, so many of you must be triggered beyond belief with the racism stuff. It's in the DNA. You know, I do shamanic healing, I do energy healing, and some of that is also ancestral healing. Everything is energy, and we just need to clear all that stuff. We need to shine our lights, man, and let go.
I just want to acknowledge my terminology is just like the voice of the ancestors speaking through you. It's really beautiful, really powerful. I just feel so much of what you said is just so real, potent, honest, integrity. It just comes through you, you know, it comes through you. So it's been really beautiful to hear what you say. Also challenging, because, you know, everything you say is about how we, or I, oneself, you know, approaches themselves. And it's not to deny community, yeah, but it's like we have an individual responsibility to deal with our stuff. And the thing that I think what resonates with me is about shame, yeah. So the difficulty of approaching those things, either, you know, whether they come from somebody else or whether there are actions that I've taken, yeah, that I know are incorrect, yeah. So the thing of approaching the place of having enough compassion and love for self to even disclose the things that are shameful to self, you know, and can be used against you, yeah, if somebody wants to. But having something inside that is, I use the word pure, yeah, enough to know that that's not me, yeah, it's just that thing. Do you have a kind of direction for people doing that? What's your kind of? I know you broke down, for want of a better phrase, but what then enabled you to turn around and face and say, guess what, you know, whatever, I'm going to do that?
You know, I suppose the breakdown was because I've had about 2 breakdowns, or 3 maybe, but when I went into rehab, it was as if there was a veil that just lifted. And, you know, I used to have to go on antidepressants in the past. After rehab, I've not been on antidepressants ever again. You know, the reason why I was, because the psychiatrist said, we need to understand why you keep getting depressed. Let's look at that. And then they realized there was so much more stuff going on for me. Antidepressants, they just mask what's going on. Yes, they may help you temporarily if you're really having a crisis, but there's so many things that mask what's really going on. So when I got to the core, I started to feel so much better within myself. It's like that cloud, that black cloud that was walking around with me ever since I was born had lifted. And then the more I just kept on this journey, I started to really find out who I am and look after myself in a way that is conducive to who I am. I'm a very sensitive soul. And I used to get put down for that. I used to be told, oh, you cry too easy. What you cry for? You just have to look Panty Van and she cry. And yeah, the looks that I used to get from family members They were so harsh for me. I couldn't cope. It was awful. And I think I took on so much of their stuff as well. But going through this journey, I realized, yes, I'm a sensitive soul, but do you know what? I'm a powerful being. And most sensitive souls have very strong spiritual gifts. And when you realize that, you can use it to your advantage, but you also have to know how to look after yourself and to have those boundaries and to have that self-love. And then that sensitivity becomes so much more of a gift, because initially I used to think my sensitivity was a curse, but it's not. So the more you do the work, the more you start to connect with who you truly are and embrace yourself, accept yourself, have more compassion for yourself. And the love, you know, when your heart starts to expand in love, it's a beautiful thing, because you stop taking things so personally. You can have more understanding for yourself, more compassion for yourself and for other people. Even with all this stuff that's going on with racism, a lot of people are triggered. I'm not so triggered because I've done a lot of healing. I've done some ancestral healing as well. And right now I'm having so many white women who are in the spiritual arena coming to me and wanting to know more about racism and what they can do. And I can see it's genuine. It's genuine. And it's because I have this open heart that I can sieve out easily who's not genuine. I mean, I blocked somebody today on Facebook who's been totally racist, but the heart space, we need to expand our heart space, because we are from love. We are love, and that's where we need to get to. I'm just looking at the comments. Yeah, love is everything. There's not enough love in the world. Do you know, sometimes I think to myself, what is wrong with humanity, man? Where's the love? And you know what it is? A lot of people don't love themselves. They don't love themselves. They don't know what it really means to love themselves. And yet we go around looking for love outside of ourselves, with our children, with our partners, with friends.
And then we blame somebody when we don't get it, right?
Exactly.
It's your fault.
Yeah.
Why you do that to me?
Exactly. Why did you allow that to happen to you? We teach people how to treat us. And then we need to take responsibility now. As grown adults, we need to take responsibility. And we get to a point where there's so many lessons that we have to learn. So we've all come to learn different lessons. Some of us have come to learn patience, trust, compassion, non-attachment, love, forgiveness, and maybe a culmination of all of those or some of those. And when you get to this place of non-attachment, that's a really powerful place to be. A really powerful place.
Can you say something about the confusion in response to a question in there? Can you say something about the confusion between sex and love and wanting and all those things? How that has been created a mush that has us believe we want one thing when actually we want something else.
Yeah, it's, do you know, sex is an act. And it's quite different to making love. And it has its functions for procreation, but also when you're not doing it for creating a baby, you're creating energy. You're creating energy. And that energy is powerful. That's creative energy. You can create, you can manifest with that energy, and you can connect to source. It's a spiritual connection. And if you're having sex or making love from your root chakra only, then you're not really experiencing it in its highest form. You start from your heart chakra and work your way up. And when you're working from your heart chakra upwards, you're really connecting to source. You and your partner can really manifest. There's a book called what's it called? It's, oh God, the secret of Black Love. Oh, I can't remember. I'll have to have a look, and I'll send the details to Royston. But it's a really good book, actually, on how we should really approach sex. And women, you need to protect your yoni. You need to protect your flower garden. Don't just let any and anything in there, because you're receivers. What energy are you receiving? Is it clean? And men, do you value yourself as well? You know, women get a raw deal in society, whereby if they are sleeping with different people, they get called slag and slut and whatever, hoe, and all these horrible words. But men, what's the difference? Divine masculine, your time for healing is very imminent. And trust me, you men are in for a shock. When you start healing, we're living in a very toxic society, and it's created such toxic masculine energy. Patriarchy is just ruined men. Men, you are sensitive. And I love that men are sensitive. But because of society, you're not embracing that sensitivity, especially our Black men, because you feel it's weak, it's a sign of weakness. No, it's not. It's a sign of strength. It's a sign of strength. And if you can show that sensitive nature, if you can embrace and have that balance of your feminine energy and your masculine energy, that's a really beautiful thing. Vulnerability. Are you able to get vulnerable? Women as well. For some of us, vulnerability means you're going to be taken the piss out of, or you're going to be taken advantage of. Because maybe as a youngster, you were. We've got to learn to release those traumas that stops us from being vulnerable. Because again, vulnerability is a beautiful thing. If you can be with somebody that you trust and be vulnerable and open in your relationships, in your intimate relationships, can you be really intimate? God, there's so much, it's all coming out. Intimacy as well. There's two types of intimacy. And you might find in some relationships, they can do one part, but they can't do both. So emotional intimacy and then physical sexual intimacy. Can you be truly open and naked in both those areas with your partner? Or is it just one? That's why affairs happen. So women, do your healing, continue with your healing, because I know a lot of women are on their journeys already. Men, and I know it's really hard for you guys. I've also got a free course for men. It's called The Awakening of the Black Man. And you can access that through my website, which I've typed up here as well. So men, just go for it. I've given that course free to men because I just feel that it's very difficult to get men to do the work and to so it's a gift. Go for it. Go through that. It's a short course, but it just gets you to kind of get honest. Can sex energy be used as a weapon against us? Of course it can, if you allow it. It's if you allow it. How are you protecting yourself and your sexual energy? You need to protect it. It's sacred. Don't just give it away. If you give it away, then it's going to be used as a weapon against you. I have an online program. It's a year's program for women. Details are on my website again for that. If you want a consultation with me, just go to my, I need to, yeah, go to my website and fill in the contact form. I do one-to-one work as well, so connect with me. Let's see this other comment. I think it's important to acknowledge the level of conditioning, racism, sexism. Yeah. The conditioning of racism, sexism, classism, poverty that we have been exposed to, as to how we have been taught to live. Many of us do not know how to peel that onion without breaking down, drowning because of the stingy to the eyes and nose. Yes, yes, yes. We've been through so much, and all those things I've experienced. We can get through it. And yes, it can be a bit painful. It can be painful. However, it's not as painful as the experiences that we actually went through when we actually address it. It's more painful holding on to it. You know, we don't have to be strong. You know, there's this thing, strong black woman. Oh, come on, man. It's a myth, because sometimes we don't allow ourselves to really embody that feminine energy of who we are, because we feel that we have to be strong all the time. And especially with our partners, we don't have to be strong all the time. We can show our vulnerability. We don't need to prove our strength. Yes, we are strong, but let's not carry that label of strong black woman.
Right. Thank you, Sister Yvonne. That's been really fantastic, really amazing. And I think, you know, come again another time, you know, and share with us. Yeah.
Yeah.
Really appreciative.
Thanks for listening.
Yeah.
Thanks for your attention.
Yeah.
No problem.
And I should have asked about your health. How's your rib situation going on?
Yeah, my rib is fine, thank you. It's
Yes.
I think I've got one more week before it's sort of proper, but yeah, but
Okay.
it's okay. Thank you.
All right. Give thanks.
Yeah.
Thank
all right.
you much.
You're welcome. Stay well, be blessed.
You touched on a lot of things a lot of people are, you know, as I said, they're shy to speak out about. So, but thank you. Right.
Anyone can contact me. If you don't want to kind of speak out here, then just contact me. Everything is in confidence, and we'll see how I can help you on your journey. You're all very, very welcome. Thanks for the support, and yeah, thank you. It's been a pleasure.
You're wonderful, wonderful.
Thank you.
Okay.
Blessings.
Without further ado, we're going to move straight on to Juliet. We said we got you back. Hey, all right, Juliet, the screen is yours.
You're muted.
Unmute yourself. Unmute yourself, sis.
Juliet. I see. Sorry, I found it. Okay. How are you all?
We're great. We're great. Even better now you're here. Thank you.
Well, I know that a lot's been going on in London. I've been hearing a lot about everything that's been happening, and you know, people basically, you know, having lockdown and just loads of madness. I mean, it's really not like that here, so I'm really fortunate to kind of have escaped. So I'm happy. Say hi, Gav.
Hello.
Don't change your talk. Yeah. So yeah, so we're also, my brother's also trying to log in online. So, Kath, be quiet, hon, because mummy's on the phone. Can you close the door, please? Sorry. Should have done some housekeeping before I came on. But anyway, basically, yeah, I mean, I was saying before that, you know, we made the Blacksit, we made the move. For anyone who doesn't know who I am, my name's Juliet, and I used to live in England. And I was born in England, and I decided that I just had enough of the racism, had enough of discrimination, had enough of our opportunities being blocked constantly, and just didn't want to be in a situation where I just felt like, you know, we were the underdog constantly. Oh my gosh, 1 second, sorry. I'm just telling him I'll call him back. So I just didn't want to feel like that all the time, and it's been, I think we've been plagued by it living there in white countries. And oh my gosh, I'll tell you what, I just have to get rid of people. I'm actually in the live. What's the code? Here it is. Look in the phone. Look under Auntie Jean. So basically, we're trying to get on the computer as well, but we had StreamYard, but I thought we had Zoom, but we didn't. So to get a steadier signal, I just thought I'd go onto the computer, but we're just going onto the Mac. So yeah, I just got fed up. I just had enough, as you know, Auntie Jean. It was a thing where I've been coming back and forth to Africa for a long time. You know, I was very heavily involved in community events and community activities and organizations, and organizing very much part of the whole reparations, repatriation. And, you know, I felt like we're doing a lot of the talking about reparations, but our repatriation has to be the first reparation that we have, is our repatriation. That is our entitlement, that is our birthright. So, you know, because I've been going back and forth to Africa, first time I came to Africa, I was 22. I'm 49 now, so it was long overdue anyway. And so, yeah, so it was myself, Juliet, and my husband, Adrian, and my son and my brother. And we just said, you know what, enough is enough. We just had enough. You know, couldn't take it anymore. My children had gone through such terrible racism, and I just didn't want to repeat the cycle. You know, I went through terrible hostility as well. I'm just joining, as you'll see, through the computer in about 1 second. So I faced such terrible hostility that I just wanted to, I hope it doesn't confuse what you're doing. Go on then, join with computer audio. Okay, so are you seeing me? I'm going to turn off this one and go back onto that one.
Okay.
Just trying to get out, sorry. Close this for me, sir. Right, so, sorry, I'm on my computer now. So I was saying that, you know, quite literally, it was a situation where my children were facing, turn off that one because they're getting kicked out. Thanks. I was.
You're muted.
Oh, so can you hear me now?
Yeah.
I'm on the computer. I like the beard. So, yeah, we just, you know, I was just sick and tired of seeing us face hostility. When I was living in Hackney, I was constantly seeing young black boys getting harassed by the police. And I didn't want my son to be one of those, you know, people that were going through that. And, you know, it was a hard decision to leave. It was so incredibly hard. Because obviously I have my eldest daughter there, and I have my middle child there. And you know, it's my son. So yeah, it's challenging. You face challenges, but especially now with what's going on in London, it's even harder because they're basically you know, both hemmed in the house. You know, they're you know, my son doesn't know whether he's coming or going. there's, you know, just not nice. It's just not a nice environment for them. And my son was here before and I was begging him to stay. He was like, no, Mum, I've got to finish my education. He's going to university. And I said, well, why not finish it here, you know? But like I said, you know, nowadays it's very hard to convince people about the benefits of Africa. And that's the reason why, you know, I started to, if you like, record my journey from England, my Blaxit from England, literally. Even till I was on the plane, I was like, I'm Blaxit, I'll leave your races behind. And, you know, I was so vexed. I was so vexed because we didn't encounter way too much pain. We as Black people in white countries encounter too much trauma. You know, too many mental health issues. Let me just turn my other phone off because it's never going to stop ringing. Right, let me just turn the sound off because it's never going to stop. My phone never stops ringing. So nothing's changed. Nothing's changed. So, you know, I think the pain I think that we endured, especially watching my children go through the same thing. When my son came home with that writing on his back, and I know you're all involved in a protest in England, so, you know, your support was immeasurable and unforgettable. Let's just say that I've never forgotten, you know, when we stood outside that school and beat our drums, and Auntie Jeannie came down in the van and everybody was there, you know, and the hostility that we faced, the open hostility that we faced, that was like enough of a, if you like, a projectile to me to fling myself like a catapult out of that country and just get out. I just didn't want to see them anymore. I started to personally hate white people. I'm not going to lie to you. I personally started to have an allergy to white people. I didn't even want to see them. I started to get depressed and stay in my house so I would avoid seeing them. And that is the truth. That's how I felt. I really had internalized what was happening to my children and what had happened to me for several years, both at work, both in education, you know, in every aspect of life, even just sitting down on the beach, you know, in the N-words, you know, being called to you. It was just too much. It compounded. It was either that or I was going to do someone something. You know what I mean? I know why. I can understand sometimes why people go and take the law into their own hands and become vigilantes and, you know, go weapon and just kill people, because I was getting pushed to the edge that I was beginning to think, where's the whitest area I can go to and can I get a gun? That's the edge that I was being pushed to, because the pain I saw my children going through, I had absolutely, you know, no kind of access to justice through the law. I had no access to protection from the police. I had no access to this thing they call equality. I had no access to justice. And so, you know, I had no access, even the remit of my access to law was even being tracked and utilized in a negative way. So, you know, I just got sick and tired of all the negative press, the negative statements about Black people, about Africa, the torments, the taunts. It's just too much, just too much. And then, you know, what are you working for over there? It's like you're working and you're going backwards. You're getting less more than you get. You're working every day, but each month you seem to be getting less. I couldn't work it out. I just couldn't work it out, because every day your cost of living is going up, you know, exponentially. So it didn't make any sense. You know, you sit there and you think you're gaining because you're going to buy a house in 25 years' time. Well, wake up, because you can build a house in less than a year and be mortgage-free and rent-free. I built my house. I came here. I didn't start building until late April. I came in February. I started to dig the foundations in May. I moved into my house in February. I'm rent-free, mortgage-free. I ain't paying for electricity. I'm not paying for water. I got solar. I got light. I'm in my house. I got my Wi-Fi. What have I got that you ain't got? I got Netflix. I got my Amazon Fire Stick. I got TV. I got what is it? I got my computer. I'm online just like you right now. Well, what is it that you got that I ain't got? The best thing I've got is that I got food, fresh food, organic food off the tree. I can pick my cashew apples, my mangoes. I can pick my kaba. Listen, I can eat fresh moringa leaves. I can eat herbs, yeah? I can eat cassava leaf, sweet potato cassava leaf. I can eat proper African food. I can mix with my brothers and sisters. I can open my front door and I don't have to see a white person. I don't have to see them. And when I do see them, I don't acknowledge them. I look through them because I've had enough. I've had enough. And I think they, and what they've done to us, there's been absolutely no compensation paid, no even apology, no reparation, no consideration. You know, and now that we're tearing down statues, you know, they're crying. Go cry. Because we've been crying for years. We've been crying for centuries. Our ancestors been crying for centuries. We cried enough. Yeah, I ain't turning no cheek. So here, yeah, I've got my anger on, you know, and I was able to put my anger into something great, which is relocation, repatriation. The amount of people I helped to get land, even today, 13 people bought land here. I'm finding affordable lands to help people get home and helping them to relocate here, build their houses. And I ain't doing like anything except for facilitation. You know, all I'm doing is facilitating. I'm not an estate agent. I'm just an ordinary person. All I do is go and use my contacts to find that information and then help them to repatriate. Find them cheap flights. Say, look, you can fly from London to Gran Canaria. From Gran Canaria, you can take Binta Canaria straight to Banjul. And the one-way, you know, journey is going to cost you more than £160. So don't tell me you can't afford to repatriate when you can afford to buy the designer shoes. Yeah? You can find a way. You can build a house here for less than £5,000. You know, it might not be spectacular and it might be small, but you can get a piece of land for less than £1,000. What's your excuse? You know, the cheapest land I got is 45,000 Dalasi. That's like 700 odd pounds. And you can live with your brothers and your sisters here on the continent. We don't have to take no more pain because there ain't no gain. All we're taking is pain with no gain. And it's making us insane. That's what's happening. I tell everybody the only way to eradicate racism is to leave it behind and go live with your own kind. Africa's not perfect, but England's far from perfect. I live a much more perfect life here than I ever did there, and I'm glad for it. I called England a dump because it is a dump. It's a dump. And the reason why I say it's a dump is because everything is there. Your drug abuse, your prostitution, your homelessness, your food banks, all the things when they talk about Africa and people being deprived, it's a lie. It's a lie. I never see a child begging me for dinner yet. I go to people's compounds and everybody feeds me. Everybody feeds me. I ain't seen no big belly child with no flies yet. I ain't seen nobody homeless sleeping on the floor yet. There's no even need for me to start a homeless project here. Yeah, I was doing a homeless project for how long in England? For years and years and years, feeding the homeless. What, you know, we got to really realize that we have been hoodwinked, lied, deceived, and everything that we're holding on to that we think is there, you shouldn't really care for because you don't need it. All those little extras you don't need. You can get yourself a little jalopy here and get by on a 4x4 just fine. You don't need all these trappings. Yeah, okay, I can show you my home. You can say, okay, Juliet, well, you're sitting on a marble table, leather chairs. That's right, I bought them here in Africa. I built this house here in Africa. African people, you know, Gambians built my house. I'm living in a 4-bedroom house with 4 bathrooms. Yeah, actually, tell a lie, it's 5-bedroom with 5 bathrooms because I built something outside. I'm lying. Yeah, my swimming pool is being built as we speak. Yeah. Why? Because I calculated how much it would cost me if I stayed in a mortgage. And I realized it would cost me my life. It would cost me my health. It would cost me my marriage. Nothing ain't worth that. Nothing ain't worth that. And I'm sorry, but
These white people will take everything from you because they only look into their own self-interest. When they're here in Africa, they're only looking to their own self-interest. I see them here. I see Lebanese here. I see Chinese here. I see Indian here. I see Swedish here, Italian here. I see everybody here except for us coming back in our droves. There's a mass exodus carrying on here. I don't think you'll realize there's a mass exodus, but it ain't us. And that's shocking. Why? Because we believe the lies. We believe the lies they told us about our brothers and sisters. We believed all the mythology that they've spread to us. We even believed that they sold us into slavery. That was the best lie ever told. What they didn't tell you was that they burnt down the villages. The amount of things I learned since being here. They burnt down the villages. They took the children and slayed the children in front of the father's eyes and raped their wives. That's how they got them to go and help them enslave each other. When you sit down with the elders here, you learn the truth. So it weren't nothing to do with no liquor and mirrors. They're lying. They're lying. They put people under such duress and torture and trauma. The evilness that they did on this continent, you will not know. I went to Sierra Leone, same story. Senegal, same story. So someone's lying, it ain't us. But we've been believing the myth, and that has created a divide between us and our continental brothers and sisters. We need to unite. We need to unite. Let me tell you something. What's going on in England is not by mistake. It's by design. Yeah? This pandemic, scandemic is by design. Having you locked in, locked down, feeling powerless is by design. It's to stop the exodus of us coming home. That's why they say when they realize, oh, Ghana, they took 1.9 billion and Ghana got $1.9 billion in less than a year from repatriation. Yo, we better put a stop to this. If we could all come together, get your money, do your Garvey Village. There's lands here. You can build eco houses for less than £10,000. Small eco houses, you can all live. There's no reason for you to suffer anymore. You can Blaxit out. Blaxit is for everybody. Blaxit is totally feasible. I couldn't even sell my property in London. Yeah? I had to rabba. Rabba means buy and sell. Yeah? I had a little bit of equity and I used it to buy stuff and come here and sell it. That's how I built my house. I opened a shop. Yeah, I became shopkeeper. I'm telling you. And Gambia supported my business. You know, they patronized the business. They supported us. And they really do support us. And there's so many changes carrying on. But change is not going to happen until we come home. And we come home. Because our brothers and sisters, you know, are waiting for us. They're waiting for us. Because together we're strong. We were taken forcefully against our will. We never asked to be taken. We never gave up our citizenship. We never gave up our Africanness. That was robbed from us. That was taken from us. They put us into plantations and made us feel that those plantations are our home. They're not our home. They're still plantations. And you're just still in the master's house. Yeah, these are old colonies, but you know what? This is a freer colony. This is the fields. Yeah? This is where you run away to. Know what you're running away from and understand it. I'm sorry, but you're living in a hostile environment with people who don't want you there. People don't want you there. You've got to understand that. They will do anything to get rid of you, calling you low-skilled workers. Now changing immigration law, putting out a questionnaire secretly. Yeah, we saw it here in Africa. We on the boat. We know what's going on there. The Tories, they put out that secret. Make sure everybody signs up to that. I put it on my page today. Seth? I don't know what's happening. It looks like black screen.
We can still hear you.
Hear me?
We can still hear you.
Yeah. Okay. I was saying that, you know, we have to get involved in the process, because this whole health passport limitations, now they can control where you come and go. They're putting up facial recognition cameras everywhere, 5G everywhere. You know, we got to know when it's time to jump ship. Yeah. We got to know when it's time to leave. And right here, right now, you know, the clock is ticking. Yeah. The clock is ticking. I'm asking everybody, work out a way, invest in Garvey Village and get out. It doesn't matter. Listen, Africa is a mansion with many rooms. Africa is beautiful. It is beautiful. You know, I'm right now just sitting in my dining room. You know what I mean? I still got my crystals. I still got my TV. I can sit down at the dining room table and watch TV. I still got a living room. I still got everything you got. Except for when I open my door, you know what I see? Nature. I don't see another house in front of me. I see trees. I see birds. I see cows. I see goats, even if they're coming to eat my tree, my orange tree, and that really annoys me. But I still see them. You understand? I walk to the village square to go and buy something, you know, because they have their market every day. And I walk to the village square and I just walk along the trees and I pick mangoes. There's mangoes like you can play football with. And I fill my bag, you know, and I pick my kava and I pick my cashews. And this is given to us by nature. So we should carry on living by nature. We're not living naturally anymore. They've got us living in boxes through TVs, through computers, through phones. Here, that's why I even got Zoom or anything, because I'm living life. I talk to people. I have a proper social life now. Not like in England where, hey, you know, we talk to each other. It was called human contact. I'm not depressed anymore. I'm not depressed anymore. I'm living. I'm alive. I'm alive. It's like living in an alternate dimension. It's almost like going through, I don't know, some kind of a loophole in time and space, and finding, whoa, I'm in paradise. How did I get here? Have I died? No, I'm alive. And that is what it feels like. And I've seen people say disparaging things about Africa. And, you know, sometimes it really hurts me, because I think you attract what you see and you see what you get. And so I attract some beautiful people into my life, you know, and I've been having a beautiful time. It's been like, you know, other than having my children and getting married, it's been the best time of my life. And I wake up happy every day. And I even dance in the rain. In England, I never danced in the rain because it's too cold, but here it's warm and nice. We call it rain shower, you know? And the sea is warm at this time of year. It's like a bath. So it's like nature just cuddles you and holds you. And when you come here, it's like something inside you just connects spiritually. And trust me, you feel guided, you feel accompanied, and you feel whole. So that's why I want people to come home. That's why I want our people, let me rephrase that. I want our people to come home. Yeah.
Thank you.
Africa for Africa, home abroad.
So I'm going to ask you to pause and just to see if there's anyone who's got any questions that they want to ask you.
Sure.
Yeah?
Yeah, go ahead.
Sister Dr. Sandra Richards.
My God, you just draw me out. You just, I mean, I was here doing my work. I got the video off. I'm just like, let me just continue doing what I've got to do here, because, and then when you started to speak, I said, I love you. I love you. You know why I love you? Because you have demonstrated what can happen. And as I'm looking at my screen, I see other people. I'm seeing, I don't know, Brother Errol Murphy. He's grinning. Patricia's grinning. Auntie Jean grinning. Brother Rice thinking, everybody grin. I'm sure behind those screens where people don't have their camera on, they're grinning because you are vibrating hope, joy, the truth, undiluted. Tired of opening our door and seeing white folk. Don't need to see white folk. Need to see each other. Hearing Brother Delroi's presentation about an alternative way of dealing with those who are leaving this plane. Listening to Sister Yvonne. I mean, I'm just like, the people don't just draw me out. I just want to say thank you, because I think through that presentation, it may give the possibility to people to take the step and go and see. Just the same way you can go to Portugal or Spain and go and see. It's true. It's true. And that you are not coming and saying, well, it's okay. You know, it's all right. No, you're saying, listen, I've got everything you've got. I'm eating mangoes. It can happen for you too. Give thanks to you. Give thanks to you for sharing that, for waking those. Not everyone's going to leave, but just knowing that some of us have left is wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. This is how you make love. I'm turning off my camera now.
Nice one.
Oh my God.
Errol, do you want to ask? Errol, did you want to say something? You're muted. You're muted.
Errol, unmute yourself.
Go ahead, Errol.
I'm unmuted.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hi, Julie.
Hello, my darling.
Hello, Julie.
Hello, my brother.
Hey, do you remember me? Do you remember me?
Yes.
But we went to the Royston NCBI meeting, and then we went for a meal afterwards. Right? This was like a long time ago. But you was talking about this, you know, what you was gonna do, and now you've done it, yeah. And you still got that great smile on your face, and it looks like everything is going your way. You understand me? And it gives me an incentive.
Oh yes.
It gives me an incentive to sort of step up, because I think that we need to step up. And tonight it's been really good, because you talking there, everybody was captivated. Sister Yvonne, everybody was captivating. Delroi was captivating. So we just need to make this move to Gambia or wherever. You could go to Ghana, Senegal, whatever. But what if Royston's got your details, then somehow, I would like to kind of make that move. But because we might need a vaccination to come there, but I don't want to be vaccinated.
No, you don't have to.
Right. Because that's what I thought it was going to
Gambia,
be.
you don't need any vaccination.
Right.
No, Gambia, you don't need any vaccinations, and not even yellow fever or anything like that. You can just come. And also, one of the other aspects that I love about Gambia is that you can get residency really easy. So, you know, I just think that, like I said, coming home and being home will definitely change your life. I mean, in ways you would never imagine. I've got a channel on YouTube, Blacksit, and I'd like you to watch it. It's called Blacksit, BLAXIT, yeah. I was interviewed by someone called Wodamaya, who is a phenomenal vlogger, and he vlogs all about Africa. I'd like you to watch him as well. And WODE and MAYA. And mine is Blacksit, BLAXIT.
I remember Blacksit, but above me, I'll have to.
Maybe when you get a moment.
Get it to Royston.
He interviewed me.
Maybe when you get a moment.
As a result of the interview, he set up the channel. And so, because the interview went viral, there was like over 4.4 million views. I couldn't believe it. I was like, pinch myself. But anyway, I don't know why 4.4 million people would listen. But obviously, there's something that it resonates within all of us when we talk from our hearts, I think. Right. So please, you know, tune into the channel, and you can contact me Royston and Auntie Jean have my details. I'm happy for you to get them and to share. Anyone that I can help along the way, I help. It's not a thing where I'm sitting there, I'm charging. I do it. It's a heartfelt thing. You know, it's different when you got your hat. Listen, let me explain something to you. I ain't even got a letterbox. Let me explain something to you. I don't have any bills.
Okay, couple of things.
Hey, so you don't get no junk mail then?
No, nothing.
Couple more
no
things.
bills.
Couple more things. We are fast running out of time. But the question is, which part of Gambia are you? Are you near the beach? And also, can you type the brother's name in the chat box message, please?
Sure.
Yeah.
I'll do that.
So are you near the beach? Which part are you?
Wodemaya, W-O-D-E.
And there's a couple of people to ask some questions as well. I think Marlene.
Yes, I would.
The channel is
you can ask your question while Juliet.
Okay, yes. I'd like to know, have you developed any other things there apart from the shop that you've got, like a school or anything to help the local people?
Well, actually, we do, because we do offer through the relocation, repatriation, which has been great. We offer local work for builders. So they build walls and potentially we build in people's houses. So that's been fantastic. We provided an income for many people within the development, land development and estate and realtor. We donate to schools, particularly my local school is my favorite, but I've donated computers to both police stations and also to schools through a program that saw us. And they came over with loads of computers, so we were able to contribute loads of computers to schools. So that was amazing. And also, we have a project where we want to work with other Blacksit subscribers to make an eco-village, and also to create some mobile health clinics, because there's quite a lot of medical personnel that are actually repatriating. So I said that would be a great idea to have mobile health clinics. So we're looking into that. In addition to that, one of our ladies is setting up a young youth program, and another lady is setting up a nursery. Well, she called it early years program. So yeah, I mean, and then we've helped with farming. We work with the Farmers Group, African Farmers Group, which is 300 farmers strong. So we're helping to attract investment for agriculture and agri-processing. So we've done loads. In 1 year, you wouldn't, that's even the tip of the iceberg. Wow. Because we use our channel to promote. We use the channel to promote loads of different initiatives and different people, and to, you know, help to attract income. So some people, as a result of the channels, had sponsorship and had their children's school fees paid. Just really nice things have happened. So many lovely things. I you know what I mean? And even in my local village, you know, we contribute by, we give generously to help people with their gardens. And also another Blacksit subscriber called Josh, who now launched his own channel, the Black Power channel. He was giving out bags of rice during COVID, and he gave out nearly 50 huge big bags of rice to different villages. You know, when they had the so-called lockdown. And I say so-called because there's not really been a lockdown here, to be honest with you. But lockdown, I really see what lockdown is. I really want to see what lockdown is, because I ain't seen it here yet. Not compared to other places.
So,
Sister
Julieta, hold on. So you're going to get a question. The answer needs to be short because we need to close.
Okay.
All right. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, the question I just wanted to ask, thank you very much, Sister Julieta, for your work. It's brilliant. I'm watching you on the YouTube channel, Blacksit. Are you able to say a little bit about Mansa and the idea of a travel trip from London to the Gambia?
Yeah, sure. I can give Royston his number, and I'm going to actually create a dedicated email for anyone who's interested in overlanding, because that time's coming up now. So, and he's
we are organising a rally, as they call it, of cars to drive over to Gambia from the UK. So we're literally waiting for the borders to open. And so we're asking people to volunteer, you know, with their cars. So it offers people a space, and so that they can overland with Mansa leading, because obviously he's done it before and he knows the way. So there's quite a few cars that are actually coming over who have got space. I know a colleague of mine's husband, his husband is driving and he has space. So, you know, people can make that escape. So we're saying, look, put your stuff in a barrel and ship it, or in a container and ship it. You know, we're looking for affordable accommodation that's like really reasonable, you know, much cheaper than what you'd be paying in the UK, like £81 a month for a 2-bedroom apartment. So 2 people can share and it's affordable for them. We're also looking into building an eco estate here, and trying to create affordable housing, which will be less than £10,000 for a 2-bedroom house. So that's what we're researching now. We're researching materials. I found the land. I had to obviously look a little bit remotely because of the fact that, you know, the closer you get to town, the more expensive it is. But found a lovely piece of land which isn't too remote, and it's also not too far from Senegal. So you've got the best of both worlds. And yeah, we do that fully.
So you're going to have to come back. Okay.
Most definitely.
Okay.
No doubt.
Just say yes.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, yes, yes.
It's far from done.
Thank you.
Far from done. Well,
thank you. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you, sis.
I'll keep watching. Thank you, Auntie Jean. Good seeing you, though.
And you too.
Hurry up and come home. Hurry up and come home.
I will. I've got them yet to come.
Okay. You too, Royston. Yeah, you too, Delroi.
All right. Come in. Come in. Come in.
Okay. All right. I'd like to say a big thank you to everybody who's joined us. Big thank you to Delroi. Very insightful. And yes, you need to come back and speak to more about that, because I mean, there's a lot that we actually learned from you. Also, Yvonne, wonderful presentation, touching on things that a lot of people are afraid to talk about and to delve into. And Juliet, beautiful seeing you. Thank you so much. Very inspiring. We want to pat and come now.
Yeah, calm.
You know, I don't know what we're waiting for, to tell you the truth. You know, because how you explained everything is like, what are we doing here? Really, what are we doing here? So thank you so much, and thank you everybody else for joining us, and thanks to the Most High for bringing us all together. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Bye.
Good night.
Bye. Thank you very much, Auntie G and Royston.
You're welcome. Bye.
Thank you, Auntie Jean. Thank you. It was a lovely presentation.
Yeah,
lovely. Thank you.
Excellent as usual. Thank you.
Oh.
Hey, good night, all.
Good night.
Hey, Jean. Boy.
Auntie Jean, thank you.
Oh. Right, how do I turn this thing off?
I'll shut you down. Yeah, leave works.
Listen, thank you. I love you both, and I'll see you soon.
Okay, bye for now.
I'm not coming your way. So come and join me on the beach.
Say hi.
Come and join me on the beach.
Hi, say hi to the family for me.
Yeah, likewise. Yeah, big up Prince.
Yeah.
And Adrian.
Okay, see you later. I will.
Bye.
See you later. Bye.
Take care. Bye.
Okay.